before his conscious mind says, but you weren't better 5 minutes ago before you read the book. So right before the conscious mind comes in, reminds him how he was, I have to lead him to very simple verses, which are at the end of each chapter, where he is guided to feel the spirit of unconditional love. He starts to, so even if he starts to doubt that he's feeling better, but I wasn't feeling okay, now I'm feeling okay, I have to give him a page, or like I think at the end of every chapter, there are 4 to 8 reminders that bring back good memory, or bring back self-worth, bring back his forgiveness of himself. And that's, for me, is technique fully done. Because I'm helping people regress back to cause and let go of the things, like let go of trauma, let go of being abused, let go of a match they lost, let go of a child they lost, let go of a brother they estranged from. So because I'm helping them change their mind, I feel responsible to, in that simple way, in that simple technique, to effectively engage the reader to do that and make that change for himself.
That's Radhika Kalra Singh, one of India's premier mind coach and author of the best-selling book You Will Be Okay. Hi there, I'm Deepthi Rajan. Welcome to Perseverance Overrated. Each episode, we take on one pressing problem related to your career and personal development. We talk to leading experts to examine these topics from different angles and to leave you with practical tips, advice, and perspectives worth thinking seriously about. On today's episode, Radhika explains how her latest book, You Will Be Okay, will help individuals flip their negative narratives, both about themselves and the world they find themselves in. From mindlessly chasing goals to fueling a scarcity mindset to tying our self worth to the thoughts and actions of others, we spend a lifetime looking outwardly and feeling inadequate. Radhika offers thought provoking perspective and practical techniques to shift focus to what actually matters you. And now, without further ado, here's Radhika. Radhika, I'm going to start with the book. You Will Be Okay. I think it's a kind of book that I am going to keep going back. It's going to be like an ongoing journey for me with that book. This is a book I hope that when my son, who is 4 months old, grows up and understands, I hope that this will be one of the books I leave him as part of my legacy to say, you know what, keep going back to this book. And I hope it makes you a better person.
Oh,
That
that's
is,
fantastic.
that,
That is such a
and I mean it, I
brilliant.
mean it, I mean it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. I'm very humbled by your appreciation.
Thank you so much. And Radhika, it's wonderful again to have a conversation with you. I don't know how to express, but your book has truly moved me in ways that I didn't know I could be moved. So it's an amazing book, and I think it's come at that point. Like you're looking, you have a lot of questions, and you're seeking some answers. And your book had come at that point without me really knowing that this book would prove to be an answer to so many questions that I was seeking or I was looking for. Right. So in that sense, it had made an apt entry, and I'm very happy to speak with you. It's almost like meeting a kindred spirit. I really didn't think that you'd be so grounded, so humble, but it's just a pleasure to interact with you once more. So thank you so much for being on Perseverance Overrated, Radhika.
Thank you. I think we've gotten on a great, incredible note. I believe that the mission that the book wanted to accomplish, which is to make people realize that they have true resonance with each other without any filters, is already met. So this is going to be a great time talking to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Radhika. So, Radhika, now I know we are going to go to You Will Be Okay, which will be, in some sense, a major focus of our conversation today. But the spotlight right now is on you. You've had a brilliant career trajectory, and what a career. One of India's premier mind coach. And clearly, one of the things that's outstanding for us is that you have been a mind coach to India's only gold medalist in Olympics. You coached some of our top athletes, actors, business leaders. You've been a documentary filmmaker. You've started your own PR firm. And I know, as I said, these are just parts of your bio that I got to pick from your book and from your website and your presence online. But this is an incomplete snapshot of a person who's done so much more in her life. So tell us about your fabulous journey. How did it all start?
I have to say, I've been driven purely by, a willingness or an eagerness to understand life. And from the time when I was very little, nothing so mystic happened, and there was no like great influence in terms of a spiritual influence. Or, but I have to say the overall, the overall scenario at home, the overall upbringing, um, with my mom and my dad and my older sister, was a space of great comfort. I have to say, people say I walked into my dream. I think I was born into my dream because it's been, you watch movies and you hear people's narratives, and often people ask me, oh my God, you do this spiritual work and you do this. What happened to you? So I believe that some of us, I don't know whether I earned this this life, or it was given to me. But I do know, and as the years have passed by, that I needed to be responsible for what I'm doing right now. It's not come by chance. It's not a coincidence. The way life has fallen into place, as there has been a path, and I have definitely walked the path. There's been a lot of bringing yourself up to date with things, with tools, with techniques, with the way you present yourself, with the way everything. It's not. I can't say it was a struggle, uh, but also the fact that I could engage with life came from the fact that I came from a comfortable, great upbringing. You know, my father always pushed us to just. My grandfather was a registrar of the Delhi University, so I came from a family where people had taken education as their number one sort of like priority. My mother made us believe that we had to get our p's and q's right. We had to know where the spoon was on which side of the table, of the plate, where the glass should be, whether we made our beds in time, whether we woke up in time. So there were the simple things that we learned a lot from. At that point, I'm sure there were chores to be done, but when you look back, there were the necessary tools required to bring that sort of discipline to your mind, that you are responsible for how you appear, for how you look, for your every word. And it was great to be to have the cultural conditioning of listening to classical music, or uh, appreciating art, going to theater. So all of this, I think, came together, and more than all of this, there was love. There was a very simple equation with love, and everybody would talk about their various experiences. So the communication and love was where I came from the first 15 years. And then onwards, it was simple to just follow my intuition, have a clear head, and walk into my dream. So there you go. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So, Radhika, I'm still intrigued. How did you, or rather, why did you choose so many diverse career paths, from filmmaking to starting your own PR firm to becoming a mind coach, right? How has
And
that journey been like? Yeah.
that's an interesting question. And I know a lot of people when they look back in life, they always question what happened, or
Mm,
why didn't they go in a certain direction. And to that, I will say that when you, knowingly or unknowingly, when you align with what your soul feels happy with, and when you do that, you'll end up walking the path that you're here or meant to take on. And I suppose for me it was easy. I was drawn to psychology, so I studied psychology. I was, my sister was in advertising. We grew up in Bombay. The city was fabulous. It was just so promising, and the advertising looked so good. It was so glamorous, and there was so much. It was fun. There were varied aspects to it. So I decided to, just the day I finished college, I decided to take up a job, right? Like the next day, walked into the Star TV office. My sister connected me with somebody. I found, there were 3 people running the office, and I got myself interviewed, and I got myself a job, and I, created, helped create the Z logo. And it was a first in my life, as well as I think a first in India, because we had Doordarshan, no private television. I followed my heart. I wanted to do that. I found myself a job. I worked hard, put together the production tools. Then Z took its own time to kind of come together. So I walked into an office that was working with films. They were a big, large printing house, but they were working with films, and there are 3 films on the floor, and nobody to manage the films. And I walked in. They said, "What can you do?" And I had like an apology of experience at Z. So I told them what I had done, and they said, "Are you willing to take on the films?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I don't know why I said yeah, because I had no experience. I was
Huh.
going to an Eton school in Xavier's, um, and that wasn't bringing back that much skill because there were very few hours that you could work with. And I landed up taking on those films, and 24 months later, I'd worked on 22 films on my own. I'm sure I got the right director, probably got the right encouragement. I have to thank people who, own the company, my boss, all of that. Right after that, I, went back. Z was calling me back, and my boss said, "Why do you want to go back? Let's do what you want to do." And I said, "Okay, let's get into software." So I made the very first, the Born Vita quiz contest, which was, a first show on Star TV, on ZTV. And it was a huge show. It was my baby. Finding the right team, the right support, the right people. Of course, my company owned the show. We co-produced it. That was it. And then my boyfriend, who then I married, moved to Delhi, and I moved. For love. I found that filmmaking was tough here because it's very news based.
Right.
So I went back and forth to Bombay for my Born Vita shoots, and then came a time where I thought that it was important to play the next sort of role in my life, and I started a PR company. Again, I had a friend, wanted to do something. She had Omega was our first client, which was amazing. That we had Favaluba, we had a art show. So I think the idea is that I followed my heart. And a few years later, I think 3 years later, I had my first baby in my stomach, and I knew I wanted to go back to, what was drawing me all the time. And so I went back to, I actually experimented at that point with Reiki, and I found it very scientific. I found that it was a very scientific technique. So I said, let's go back and study. And that's where I went back to psychology. And, it's been 20 years and I've
not looked
gone
back.
through. Yeah.
Amazing,
So
amazing.
I think it's all about life, presenting you certain opportunities. Either you take them on or you don't. If you believe in them, you do. If your heart aligns with it, you follow that path, and you're good to go.
Amazing, amazing. And from Reiki, you went on to become a mind coach,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And now you're an author. What a journey.
That's right.
So, Radhika, now we'll come to You Will Be Okay. This is your third book. I wouldn't say third book. Of course, your second and third book were written the way you mentioned during our last conversation in parallel. But let's say this is the third book in the trilogy. What inspired you? Because it's a book I have read, and I wanted to really understand a lot more your thought process about behind the book. So, what inspired you to write You Will Be Okay?
So I'd taken a 3-month sabbatical from my routine therapy sessions, end of 2019, leading up to March, because my younger daughter was writing ICSE exams. And so I was like waiting for March to be over in a way so I could go back to my sessions. And then came the pandemic. I started writing to sort of replace the specific number of hours that I strategically use to work with people. So I think when it started, I believe it was just a technical, I do sessions and I'm replacing the sessions because I can't have people, I can't meet people. Let me do the same work that I do, but let me do it on a larger scale, right? Let me do it in a way that I can help and influence people. So before I knew it, I was writing, and before I knew it, I had great ideas. And I sent them off to publishers. I got a great welcoming response. I picked my publisher, and I was done writing by the end of May. June and July, I edited, and the books were out. So definitely, there was intuition, there was guidance, but there was also the need to fill in the number of hours. Why was it specifically You Will Be Okay? Is actually a great question, because see, I trained as a hypnotist, and the first rule of hypnosis is the ease of suggestibility. Now, the one thing that people needed to hear as soon as we were faced with this enormous level of uncertainty, both within us and outside, the one thing they needed to hear was, you will be okay. Now, the second rule of hypnosis is to project and enable people to believe that the present moment is facilitated already. Right? So if I'm working with somebody who has to get over his fear of something, I'm having him imagine and rehearse that he is already okay. He's already gone through. However, here, so the book should have been You Are Okay. However, the pandemic anchored such a giant a leap of mistrust, right? Um, so the more potentially believable and thus the more sort of trusting initiation could only come from you will be okay. Also, I feel that, through my sessions with people now it's been 21 years of doing therapy sessions, the one insight that I gained is that humans are not uh, saluted or cheered to disclose their weaknesses. From the time they're born, although universe teaches you at the moment that you're born that you should, emote because you cry. That's the first thing you do. However, society is conditioned in a manner that they always we're always made to believe that we can't, we shouldn't be crying, right? Stop feeling your feelings. And that seeps into your very cells. It sits inside your body. And, as you engage with life and as you go on further, more and more information, more and more, things you haven't done, goals you haven't met, all of those instincts, all of those endeavors are sitting inside of you. And at some point, something pushes you, and it's like a hot cauldron, which then, the lid is open and you're wailing or crying or reacting or responding, or in your body you feel an illness, in your mind you feel mentally ill, all of that. And so the most important gift I thought I needed to give myself was coming up with a piece of work that would salute people's emotions, because here's a time when everybody's feeling uncertain, everybody's feeling vulnerable, everybody's feeling unadaptable. And I find that through vulnerability there is a hidden potential to gain enormous empowerment. And there's the book.
Wonderful. In fact, I remember one of the earliest lines in your book, Radhika, is okay to feel uncertain, weak, right? It's okay not to be okay. When we typically go through pain, our well wishers, their first impulse is to say, hey, you know what, everything will be okay. It's just nobody, I mean, I think just that it's perfectly okay for us to respect our emotions that may not be as positive as the way you said. We are taught to repress our emotions, negative emotions especially. When I started reading You Will Be Okay, the initial few pages I thought was difficult. And I am the first person to admit I am an unsophisticated reader. This is probably one of those books that has definitely pushed my own abilities as a reader. And there came a point when I fell in love with your book as well, right? Now, before we go into that part when I fell in love with your book, let me ask you this question, because every book has an audience. Now, if you were to define who is the ideal audience for You Will Be Okay, who would it be?
The person who's come into the awareness of his vulnerability. Because if you've come into awareness of the fact that you need to improve your life, if you've come into the awareness that I am feeling limited, if you've come into the awareness that I need a tool, I need help, guidance will be good, that's the time you pick up this book, because the book is not a narrative. It is plainly offering you technique that is helping you overcome the challenge, helping you find that liberation, helping you walk through your vulnerability, helping you recognize your weakness. So once you're already come into the awareness that there is something missing, there is this void, things are slightly out of place, I can improve myself. That's when you pick up this book. So that's my audience.
Excellent, excellent. Radhika, when you're writing You Will Be Okay, what was your biggest challenge?
While the book sets out to address the place of least resistance, right? Because your vulnerability facilitates your power of being okay, right? Because if you don't feel vulnerable, how will you take that walk? How will you walk to feeling powerful, right? Because if you're feeling absolutely fine, you don't feel the need to be okay. You're fine. You may be in denial. You may be very confident that life will be okay. But it's when you're lacking, when you're feeling that lack, the book needs to facilitate you that with the power of being okay. So if there was a challenge, I believe it was a very sweet challenge, because all I needed to do was create that balance, right? So first, let's break this down. First, I need to get the reader to acknowledge his need for improvement, right?
Right.
He finds the lack. Then let's see the challenge is that when you do that, it's not a story about somebody else. It's not a narrative. It is making you want to feel your emotions, right?
Mm.
So as soon as the reader discovers that, oh, now I have a lack, and oh, I am feeling vulnerable, it becomes my responsibility to to offer him the means to repair that vulnerability, right? So if I've taken him that far, then I need to keep him curious enough. uh, I have to remain very colloquial in the tonality of my words, and then simultaneously I have to offer him an easy recipe to dismiss that imitation, right? So
Mm.
if you walk through the book, I am making him feel vulnerable. I am making him come into the awareness of it. Then keeping him excitable enough to continue to seek the tools. Then I give him the tools that have potentially that he will be able to use. So my tools can't be classic tools that a therapist uses in his office because the therapist knows how to use them. I have to hand him tools which are technical, however they're easy, they're fun.
Mm.
And once he starts working with himself, he actually changes. So because my whole technique is about making that subconscious shift. It is about helping him bypass the conscious mind. And because it's so technique driven, right after he starts feeling, okay, I feel better, I have to, before his conscious mind says, but you weren't better 5 minutes ago before you read the book. So, right before the conscious mind comes in, reminds him how he was, I have to lead him to very simple verses, which are at the end of each chapter, where he is guided to feel the spirit of unconditional love. He starts to, so even if he starts to doubt that he's feeling better, that, but I wasn't feeling okay, now I'm feeling okay, I have to give him a page, or like, I think at the end of every chapter, there are 4 to 8 reminders that bring back good memory, or bring back self worth, bring back his forgiveness of himself. And that's, for me, is technique fully done. And because I'm very technical in my approach of therapy, because I'm helping people regress back to cause and let go of the things, like let go of trauma, let go of being abused, let go of a match they lost, let go of a child they lost, let go of a brother they estranged from. So because I'm helping them change their mind, I feel responsible to, in that simple way, in that simple technique, to effectively engage the reader to do that and make that change for himself.
And I think, Radhika, I did mention at the start that this is a book I'm going to go back again and again. And one of the outstanding features are the practical techniques that you have included. And that makes it, as you said, relatable. It doesn't just stop at me consuming information, but it also allows me to engage with what you've written. It helps me, build my own experience.
That's
So
it.
that's another beautiful part about You Will Be Okay. The other thing is, as I said, at a phase in my life, I may not be feeling all these emotions, like, I won't be probably feeling unadaptable or different and so on. But there will be seasons in my life where I would be feeling unadaptable, or I'd be feeling like I am losing control and things like that. And I know those will be the instances when I'll again go back, reach out for your book, go to that specific chapter, and get myself back in the game. As I said, there is a chapter for every season that one can possibly go through in this journey called life. So I think all these things together make your book, as I said, the go-to book for a lifetime. Now, another thing that you mentioned is the short verses, but they reminded me of Rumi's poems. I want you to now tell me what's your favorite chapter. I know it will be difficult for you to, it's like asking a mom to pick her favorite child, but what's your favorite chapter in the book?
Thank you for that compliment, because I feel spiritually elevated being in the same space, as Rumi. I have to say that my favorite chapters, all the verses at the end of every book, at the end of every chapter, all the verses which lead you to find unconditional love for the other person. So there's the chapter, and then it ends with "You are okay."
Mm.
And I'm okay. So the pages which are on "You are okay" uh, are just going to be my favorite verses that I've ever written, because I believe that um, if a human is able to dissolve the pain that he's experienced. And he's obviously stored it, because pain is something that you store. It's emotional energy that sits inside you somewhere or the other. You may be able to forgive the person, and you should be forgiving the person and people and yourself. However, the memories take very long to go away. And if you're able to dissolve through that pain, if you're able to recognize a space of unconditional love for people, um, you've just done a wonderful job. You've been able to walk this path of the spirit. And so, when I write, I write, my dreams harmonize the rest of the insanity I find in me. I am okay. I'm here forgiving myself for being insane, for making reckless decisions. And sometimes just making that affirmation, it makes it all okay. And that is huge, because that means I have walked 1,000 miles making that statement. And to me, I think this has been very, very valuable. I mean, I know that I've taken the reader from something very simple initially to I am all that I'm in awareness of, or I choose who I need to be, I'm okay. And these are simple verses because I wanted people to start thinking that I need to come into the awareness that I'm okay. All I need to do is step into the awareness that I include that which remains out of my sight. That means everything is in my sight, but now I include it. And as soon as I include something as simple as love, I feel okay. Something as little as unconditional spirit, everything is sorted. It's like when you're bitter with your father or your neighbor or a old relationship at work, and that person meets you and apologizes. Everything does become okay. So I think also what happens is that when I write, of course, I'm using my mind and my spirit, but I'm also using a little bit of intuition. It's when I finish writing that I sometimes have to say marvel at, and I think it's great, but I marvel at what's come together, because then I'm using my mind and I'm looking as an observer and saying, this is the work of the spirit, because it couldn't be anything that is deviated from it, because it is seeming quite beautiful. And there are times when I've said, is it possible that I did not comprehend your perceptiveness? You are okay. So I hear I'm looking at the line, I'm saying, I am taking the blame, knowing that the other person didn't do his job or didn't finish the walk towards the goal. But I'm accepting that I didn't comprehend how perceptive the other person was. So I'm the one at fault. And then I'm saying, you are okay. So I'm letting my mind know that it's okay. Everybody is fine. You don't need to judge them. I'm able to see the fault in myself. And I think as a human and as a therapist, when you see the fault in yourself, that's when you make the real shift. Yeah. So these are my favorite, I have to say, favorite parts of my work, because I have to say, when the foundation of my therapy work is that after the client comes in for, say, he's lost his brother, or he's lost a child, or she's been abused, and he goes, he's traumatized, or he's worked himself up, very anxious, very reckless. However, the work is done with the subconscious mind, which is 90% of your mind. So when the change happens entirely. So when the person is out of the session, or a week later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, he feels differently. He doesn't feel as much anxiety. And he often wonders why he ever did a session with me, because he's not the same person. So what I'm doing in the book is I'm trying, also see, your own writing is about understanding your own life and your own work and where you've taken your evolution, right? So I believe what I'm also trying to do in the book is having the book disclose the entire technique, having the book let people understand that that's how much they can change through just working with themselves, through their inner you, through expressing their concerns, through assimilating their undertakings. And I'm putting the responsibility in people's hands. So I think the beauty is in helping me also recognize that I've done my job well. And then I don't actually need any applause after that, because if I know that my work has met the spirit's sort of like trigger, I'm happy, I'm fine. And I often don't need that acknowledgement then.
This is very insightful, Radhika, and it's also very thought provoking. For those who are steeped in materialistic life, right? I mean, the self awareness that you're talking about, it becomes a little difficult because we are all the time chasing external things. And when I read your book, it's powerful because it first of all induced all these emotions in me. I remember I felt positive, I felt empathetic, I felt this wave of kindness, I also felt emotional. This point that you make, that we have all the answers within ourselves. That's why I said you will be okay was very comfortable, because it helped me very importantly connect with myself. Now, firstly, for the uninitiated, is very important. What does self inquiry mean? Because that's a term that does pop up regularly in You Will Be Okay. And what does it mean, and why is it important?
Okay, so for the uninitiated, we have to make it a little more romantic. Because I have to say two very clear answers here. One, how are we claiming that people are uninitiated, right? Because the uninitiated will say, "Do you know better? Are you spiritual? You think you know better. You think you know this well, right?" And why are they remaining uninitiated? Because the human body is built like that. We don't. It's not anybody's fault or anybody's entitlement, because we don't know how to prioritize. Because as humans, we have a great need to satisfy our immediate needs, right? The human cells will respond to the momentum that you create, that you enable them to be equipped with, and time dictates unique travels, right? So this time of isolation, for instance, is teaching us to find great courage, because it's required. So we'll prioritize it. So we will all become more self-aware. So, there's the thread of consciousness that it's awaiting its own shift. For instance, gurus are born in all forms. If your car's broken down on a highway, and there's no other, no God is going to save you. No amount of spirituality is going to save you. No amount of initiated spirituality is going to save you. What's going to save you is a mechanic who knows how to fix the car. So the mechanic is as much initiated as I am in understanding Vedanta or in understanding Rumi's love for the unconditional spirit. And so one of the things that we need to know is that a human body compels us to hold on to things that we can see, feel, embrace, touch, and then anchor, so we can feel secure. Because a human first requirement is to be able to feel secure. So I believe that there's we can't call it a fault, but it is a inbuilt necessity to sometimes not oblige to wisdom or not feel responsible to towards a certain philosophy. So I don't think it's anybody's fault to not understanding it or not have that self-inquiry, because I also believe that self-inquiry could be that mechanic who goes and looks at the stars and knows the distance from where he's lying to the stars and knows that it's infinite. So I believe that we need to break down these barriers of, am I not initiated enough? Am I not aware enough? I think all of us are aware. We all have a journey that dictates it. But for the initiated, for the ones that are already speaking, talking, science, spirituality, taking an abstract or two from even like Rumi that you said, for them, I believe, maybe I'll just answer it in a way. Rumi said, I died to the mineral state and became a plant. And this is one of his the most influential Sufi works, known as the Quran in Persian. It's called Masnavi. And he says, I died to the mineral state and became a plant. I died to the vegetal state and reached animality. I died to the animal state and became a man. Then what should I fear? I never have become less from dying. And in my opinion, he's merely suggesting that we lose our enchantment for, what you were saying, this material state. And just knowing that in whatever manner we are, we are in a state of self-inquiry. We can't not be in a state of self-inquiry. Either we're aware of it. I may be aware of it, so I'm writing it. This is what I do. But a lot of people are not aware of it. So I believe that we need to first, as people who are talking about this matter, wanting people to help people and evolve, drop all judgment and say everybody is in a space of self-inquiry. It is just another chapter at another level or another abstract that we may borrow when we are expressing it through a quantum physics, or we're expressing it through a verse, or through understanding cognitive science. But I believe that we're all good and we're all in a space of self-inquiry. Yeah.
I love the quote by Rumi. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Radhika. Radhika, another question that I have is, so this very good point you made, which is that we are all in that journey of self-inquiry, whether we consciously are aware of it or not. What do we lose out by not consciously connecting with ourselves and getting better at the art of self-inquiry?
If we remain oblivious to self-inquiry, then we're missing out on life. We're missing out on the subjective reality that we're part of. We're missing out on what the yoga is here to offer us. We're missing out on, initiating ourselves to know that we've become better. We're missing out on, when I work with clients, I have to say, I keep going back to the space because everything that I've learned is from having worked with people. And I'll be working with them on, say, repairing the relationship with, say, the husband. Okay, it's a common one. Or really repairing a relationship with the father. It's a common one. And after they've, gone through the therapy, which is really walking through many, many times in your life when you were repressed or you were made to feel the person who's triggered the situation, or made to go through the trauma of it, or the fear or the anxiousness, all of that. When you've finished all that and you've forgiven people in the session and you've cried and you've screamed and you've come to come to another part of your life where you're like, okay, I've put this behind me. Now I've got different anchors in my life. I have a wife, or I have a business, or I have self-worth. So now I can go ahead. Oftentimes, Dipti, after that, a person will finish that session, wipe his tears, get a glass of water, stand up, and then look at me and say, what was the purpose? Why did I go through this? Because remember, at that point of time, they've also been through the therapy. So they've gotten over the chunk of so they're feeling like tigers. And they go look at it, and they look at it, and they go, so what is the purpose of this? As if I'm sitting here to give all the answers. And to that, I always say, can you recognize wet? And they look at me and they go, after that whole 2.5 hours of going through therapy, where they have a newfound sort of respect for me, because respect only comes when you've done the work. Right. Otherwise, you're looked upon as the mystical guru. And so they look at me and they go, now, what kind of a question is she asking me, right? Was she as much of an idiot when she had my eyes closed and I was focused? Maybe I didn't know. Maybe she's really not intelligent or powerful enough. And they look at me and I say, yeah, what is the experience? How do you know wet? And they go, oh, I had water. I went, looked at the rain. And then I look at them and I say, the only reason you know wet is because you know dry. And they go, And I said, you wouldn't know it. So you wouldn't know this experience, and you wouldn't know your liberation, and you would know that you wouldn't come into the awareness of how happy you can be, or how sad you were and felt the pain of love, or felt the pain of betrayal. You wouldn't know a real emotion if you hadn't had the journey. And most of them then feel that that's the purpose of their journey, and that's quite met. So I believe that self-inquiry is wonderful because it gets you to appreciate your journey. Whether it's challenging or it's beautiful, it gets you to appreciate your journey. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense, Radhika. Radhika, the other thing, when I was reading You Will Be Okay, was this whole concept of abundance mindset. It runs very strong throughout You Will Be Okay. Now, 2020 and COVID has definitely, and as I said, I've experienced this even with the most seasoned professionals from my network. There's a scarcity mindset that has been induced. People are scared, and people have lost jobs, or they're fearful of losing jobs, their mobilities, connections with others, and so on. Now, how do we find the strength within ourselves to nurture an abundance mindset when everything around us seems not too positive?
That's a great question, because this is when we're stepping into a very practical space of knowing, finding solutions, and I think that's what we need to be. So, excellent question. My first book, It's Easy to Be You, was difficult. Was a difficult read for most people, um, but I needed to speak about the power of you. I needed to speak about the power of your own substance, your own construct, your own, what are you made of? Who are you? And establish its purpose. Your question is, how do we find the strength within ourselves to nurture an abundant mindset? We have to first know who we are. Because if we don't know who we are, we're seeking something that is already ours, because we are abundant. We are in abundance. We are part of that absolute. Every point of that fragmented abundance is already inside of us. So I would not ever, and that's why I'm canvas you, because you are already abundantly enriched with the power of the universe inside of you. Your every thought co-creates your reality. So if you're looking for abundance, we'll always be looking. The minute you discover that you are synonymous with the universe, then you yourself become the very storehouse for hope and abundance. And you realize that you are unique and you're complete and you're loved, and it is up to you to delimit yourself. So that's my answer to the abundance mindset.
I think I'm really trying to, maybe break it down for myself, because I know that this is a response I'm again going to go back to from time to time, which is that, let's say today I'm speaking to you and I'm feeling very optimistic and very positive, but tomorrow, it hits me that, oh, things aren't all that great. What I'm doing with my life and things like that, right? And suddenly again, it's like, okay, I will never amount to anything. Now your response, I know it's a beautiful response, but as I said, I am still an unsophisticated individual. I've still not reached that level of enlightenment. How would you explain to someone who's, as I said, an unsophisticated person, how would you explain to them about this abundance mindset and to nurture it?
A great, very, 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 very good question. Because unless we break it down, I'm very detailed when I write, when I speak, when I work with people, and so I love the fact that we're breaking this down so much. Let me put it another way. Let me put it now in a scientific, practical, pragmatic way. Right? We understand it from the universal point of view. I still believe that if we read enough, if we borrow enough perspective, if we understand enough, then we will all of us will come to the point where we feel that abundance. So, as long as we keep on seeking it, it won't be ours. It's like God, right? As long as you keep thinking he's a fellow sitting on a cloud responsible for what you do, and say, Bhagwan, mera ye kar do, or do this for me, you're really not walking a very happy path. Having said that, what is the practical way of saying, okay, I'm abundant? Okay, so my answer to that is, I'm going to stop a little bit and explain to you that in the way that the human mind and the human brain is created, only 10% of your mind is conscious. 90% of your mind is subconscious. So what's happening is that again, I'm bringing in the idea of you, because when you step away, when you remove yourself from your own limitation, when you find new anchors, when you step into that space, you create that abundance. I'll give you a very simple example to break this down. I go to a beach, and this is the first time I'm going to a beach. I'm holding my child's hand, and I see somebody drowning. I hear him, then I see him screaming. Now, if I leave my child, I'm putting him at risk. We're at the ocean front. If I go and help, I may not be that great a swimmer. What am I meant to do? Hopefully somebody helps that person finds himself safe and comes back to the shore. What am I going back from the beach with? I'm going back having anchored a lack of that abundance. The universe is right there. It's resplendent. There's the ocean. There's there's a mist. There's the air. It's beautiful. It's infinite. And yet I'm feeling desolate. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling restless. And I take that anxiety with me. Let's cut to another time when I'm on the beach. That's a beautiful day. I'm stepping into the water, and I look at the wave, and the wave comes to me, and I go, and I anchor that beauty within me.
Right.
And every time somebody mentions the beach, I'm like, I'm dying to go back to that beauty. So now you answer this question for me. How are we responsible in creating our own abundance mindset? Or is there an opportunity that the world or universe presents or we walk into that teaches us that abundance? So the answer comes back to my canvassing you as a platform for saying, find out who you are, step away from your limitations. Yes, the world took you to a place where you felt lack of love. Yes, the world made you experience a lack of money. Yes, the world took away your self-worth. Bring it back, but only you can bring it back. And when you repair it by, using the books as one way, by you repairing it by your self-inquiry, by not depending on other people, not looking for a guru outside of you, not following another system and technique. When you become your own guru and you manifest that spirit of inquiry, then you step into abundance. You have to do that yourself.
That's a powerful response. Radhika, so we spend a major part of our lives mulling over the actions of others. Literally as a species, we are thriving on negativity towards one another. How can we get better at taking care of ourselves by placing less premium on the thoughts and actions of others?
By discovering love, by understanding what love means. I'll give you another analogy because I always go back to things, the experiences I've had. I was doing a survey very, very, this is about 15, 20, 18 years ago. And I met little boys from a sabji market, right? From all the vegetable vendors who sit together in Delhi. And, I asked them, what is the meaning of love? Pyar kya hota hai? Pyar ka matlab kya hai? And, most kids said when they're playing, when their, father gives them whatever, money to buy ice cream, whatever. One little child, very little, he was 6.5, 7. He said, when my father comes and slaps me on my face, jab mere papa mujhe chor ka thappad marte hain. And why that happened was that boy's father was a coal miner. Not a coal miner, sorry, a coal, he had the trolley which takes koila for little small scale industry, whatever. And the guy would come back, having had alcohol, consumed copious amounts of alcohol. So he would be fairly drunk or aggressive or whatever. And he would see his child. Now, the child is living amongst a community of children where the fathers are always home. And they're giving them little money as they earn money through the day. They're giving him 10 rupees to go buy ice cream, 5 rupees to go do something. And this child is just waiting for his father. So when he sees his father, even if the father slaps him, his interpretation at that young age is, that's my connect with love. That's how I know love. So my answer to your question is, let your life's inquiry bring you into so much wisdom that you can be free from doubt. You can be free from blame. You can be free from greed. And I really don't believe anybody has a right to show you that path to liberation. You have to find it yourself because your subconscious mind will finally answer your questions. I've had clients in their 60s and 70s, very, very successful people because of their self-worth, their wealth, their industry, whatever they've created, but completely lacking love, completely lacking confidence. And they say to me that, after we've done enough work, you have to, they admit to you and that they've never felt this way before, right? And they want to keep coming back for sessions. They want to discover more in themselves. What happened there? They had the money, they had the wealth. What happened? A few sentences spoken by their people around them, teachers, by their parents, in zest, saying, I've had a client his father made him fall off a cycle, just kicked it and said, let me give you a hand, son, or you'll never get started. And that kid at that very impressionable age held on to that, never got things started. He became one of the most wealthiest people in this country with one of the biggest industries. There's family money, lineage, he went to Oxford, blah, blah. He never ever could let go of the fact that, oh my God, I'll never get things started. So how can we determine what every mind is soaking in and absorbing? We have no clue. The person himself has no clue. And that's the beauty really of what attracts me to do therapy, because every single person who sits in your chair has a different narrative. And you have to help them find the joy that works for them. So a person may say, I hate my husband, but at the end of that session, she wants to be with her husband. She may hate the fact that he snores or he treats her badly, but she really wants to just be with him. So I don't believe I have an answer to that question, because I believe that everybody has to find their own spirit of, for somebody, money may do the magic. For somebody, writing a book may do the magic. Then, I don't know what works for everybody. It is very, very, very personal.
Because we're so quick to judge people negatively, especially with your book, is that it has allowed me to show greater compassion, or at least think about others more compassionately, to say, maybe they have their own troubles, and I'm just seeing only one side, and I'm too quick to judge them, right? And maybe that's not the right thing to do. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that your point is very valid, and that brings up another point. Perhaps I wouldn't have thought about it if you hadn't mentioned it. That we are driving this book to help build a community that can thread a little more sensitivity toward each other and feel the spirit of unconditional love, etc. However, again, the more important person in this entire story is you. And that's why although my favorite verses are you are okay, but I believe the ones that are stronger are I am okay, because it takes so much more to forgive yourself for something that you did. It takes so much more to see yourself as strong when you weren't. It takes so much more to find compassion for yourself than for somebody else. It takes so much more to find a state of ease in yourself or in seeing in another person, right? It's very easy. The garden always looks greener on the other side, or the grass, as they say always, looks greener on the other side. The rose is always more fragrant when in somebody else's hand. But try and get that optimism inside you. Try and get that charitable disposition inside you. Try and get that sense of ease inside of you. It's much more difficult. So the more difficult part of this whole story is working with yourself. And of course, it's more challenging. And we're here to face challenges. We're not here. Life is a war. We're not here for peace. If we were at peace, we would have been born in the Garden of Eden and gone off from there. We would have never had a life which was so complicated.
I think you also mentioned something about controllables at some point in the book. You will be okay. And I think this also talks about what we can control. We can only control ourselves. We can't control others. And we spend an inordinate amount of time controlling other people, their reactions, their thoughts. So this is super insightful. Thank you so much, Radhika. Radhika, you worked with some of the best. And one of the lines that you wrote in You Will Be Okay was, one clear and consistent trait evidently seen in successful people over others is their communication with themselves. Could you elaborate a bit more on this point? And what are some of the other traits of successful people that the rest of us don't have, but we could do well to emulate?
What successful people are doing is that they have chosen the spirit of self-inquiry. Just to make myself understood a little more, and just to have our readers and people who are listening to this understand this a little more. When you get out of your own way, you are allowing energy to unfold itself and reveal your journey. Say, let's take an athlete. An athlete works really hard, finds himself being, he's qualified for a certain match or a certain tournament at the world level, at the Olympic level. He's got his skill in place, for sure, having beaten all his competitors. Now he's at the Olympic Games. What decides that he wins? The only thing that decides that he wins could be coincidence, could be chance, could be his destiny. But that is all, that's all hearsay. And that's what is the one thing that will help him probably do better than the others and find that goal, is that he's moved out of his own way. He's broken down his mind and the way his mind body connects, and stepped out and found an anchor of faith and belief in himself. I'm not just saying it as a philosophy. I'm saying it in a very technical way. He has anchored. That means he presses a button in his head and out delivers success, which means he has learned to control his mind and his emotions in a manner, he or she, in a manner that he's going to deliver a dialogue which says, you got it, it's done. And that's the difference between people. So it comes down to self-awareness, it comes down to self-inquiry, and that's what we have to emulate. The fact that you have to work at it, the fact that it's not going to come to you. I work with people who I work with their motivation, skill, confidence, trauma, da da da. I only do a few sessions. I don't believe that we need the technique itself doesn't allow me to do more sessions, because of course you can have people in your chair over again, do work with parts of their being. I like to combine everything, make sure that they regress, they find the cause of their suffering, they're able to scream, shout, take it out, forgive people, blah blah blah, and find a new anchor. So I do all of that. But with athletes, I work for years. I will work with a single athlete for a year, about 20 days a month, which is a lot of work, because the person wakes up with certain anchors, goes to bed with certain anchors. That's the kind of work they put in. So that's really the answer to your question. Perseverance, it needs to be emulated. That's what it takes.
Amazing. And it's very intentional. So the way you said self-awareness, self-inquiry, it's very intentional. They do it, they make a practice out of it.
Yes.
Brilliant. That's an amazing response. As I again said, I'm going to go back to that response. Sort of really, lit some light bulbs in my head. So thank you so much for that. And coming back to you will be okay. There is this flow that I really, when I say the flow, I meant a unique attribute of your book, which is the fascinating photographs that you included at the start of each chapter. Have you curated those photographs yourself?
Oh, they're shot by me. Yeah. They're shot.
Wow.
They are. So I pride myself in being a home photographer. I don't think I've never sold my work, but I also have a tendency not to edit my frames. So my every shot that I take, I never change I may change the lighting or the sharpness, but I don't change the way the shot is framed ever. And I can click, for all the people who've traveled with me know that I can click 1,000 photographs. The reason I used photographs is to offer a relief to the person who's working with himself, to also provide that contrast. When I'm working with an area that is darker in my head, right? I'm working with my vulnerability. I'm working with uncertainty. I'm working with the fact that I'm not feeling able. I'm not feeling certain. I'm not feeling confident. I'd like for that mind to pick up cues of certainty. I'd like for that same mind to pick up cues of liberation. I want to offer a landscape where the imagination is able to take off, because imagination is your biggest tool when it comes to the mind. So to be able to trigger and initiate. So I'm Dipti trying in my books, and I think I'm succeeding for sure, because I have a lot of really positive feedback. I'm emulating my own sessions, and I'm making it simpler. And can you imagine emulating a session for a wide audience? That means the same chapter will work for a child who wants to ride his papa's back across the pool, to a successful person at 60 who wants to ride his son's back to get across the road that he knew how to drive past. So the challenge is really to be able to provide that simple tool to facilitate any kind of audience and open up the imagination for anybody. So because I shoot those photographs myself, it's very easy for me to curate that intuitive streak that I provide in that. Yeah.
And they provide this really nice touch. So in some sense, they reinforce the message. And I must compliment you. All the photographs are stunning. A. B. My pet peeve was, why aren't they in color? Because color would have taken it to another level. I know, but the printing constraints might have been there. The third is, there is this one photograph in particular. Of course, the third is that you have traveled to, good Lord, I don't know, with you, even I traveled to a lot of places in the world that I didn't know even existed. But amazing, experience I'm sure that you've had. But of course, even we as readers got to experience that. And the fourth is, there's this one photograph in particular. I don't remember the chapter exactly, but it's a photograph of a sun which is shining right above a sea. And this the sun's rays sort of sheds like a path, like a path. It cuts through the sea. And
Correct.
I'll tell you what my first thought was. So Bombay, even I lived in Bombay like for 4 years, and I lived
Yeah.
very close to Worli Sea Face. And
Okay.
I would go there almost every day, and I have seen numerous sunrises and sunsets, and I never observed it. So this was similar to what Shobna Narayan had said in one of your videos on your YouTube channel, that we see so many things, but yet we don't see.
Mm,
And it
mm.
struck me then that how different would I have, experienced those sunsets and sunrises had I just seen, or seen this particular photograph before, because it suddenly opened up. It's very difficult for me to articulate. I'm not very good with words, but
No, no, but
it's
I think it's fabulous for to understand this. I'm also it's enormous feedback for me, because that's what really the reason that those photos were picked is to facilitate that liberation. And if you're able to move back and look back at your time and say, I wish I'd anchored that sunrise, and I wish I'd seen it as a path of light. Um, then done my job, because now what's going to happen is the very next time you're watching a sunset on next to an ocean, you are going to do that without even thinking about it. You are going to anchor the greatness and the beauty and the abundance of nature. Yeah.
amazing, amazing. I'm so glad that you said anchor, because now I'm piecing everything together. So you're giving me all the pieces. Now I'm piecing it together. So wonderful. So Radhika, you wrote your first book, It's Easy to Be You, in 2018, and two
Yes.
years later you released two books, You Will Be Okay and You Beyond Isolation, and completing the You trilogy. Now the three books. Do you have a personal favorite, and why?
um the first book makes me settle in faith, you know because I have to say, I spend my life searching for the interpretation of God. Dipti, I couldn't bow down with ease, at a temple. And my parents weren't really following a religious sort of like, customary religious sort of ritual or anything like that. They were Arya Samaji, which means that they worship nature and the present moment. So it wasn't that I was looking, but obviously, being an Indian and being a Hindu, you go to so many ceremonies and you meet so many gurus and babas and temples, and your life is full of all of that,
Right.
resplendent with all of that. I shouldn't say full, resplendent with the beauty of that. But I couldn't bow down with ease, because I felt I was cheating myself. Every time I'd, bend down, I was really little. I remember I was like, what am I doing? I'm not doing this
Mm.
right. I didn't understand it. And so my question and my inquiry was, who is God? What is God? What is the greater spirit? And so the book, It's Easy to Be You, made me responsible for my own journey. Not that I wasn't. I've been a very aware person with a lot of awareness about my own track and my own journey and what I'm doing. But it helped me uh, fine tune that responsibility. See, throughout our life, we remain enchanted
Mm.
by, what do I need? Do I need to look better? Do I need to have a greater sense of self-worth? Do I need a better relationship with my spouse? Do I need more money? Do I need a better relationship with my self-worth? Am I rich enough? Am I too poor? Am I too shy? Am I too extroverted? We go through this, right?
Mm.
These are the everyday, daily, routine, practical issues of everybody, besides the larger picture, besides the fact that, are you going the right direction? Are you married at the right time? Etc., etc., all of that, right? But you have these little things that trouble you every day. Are we deviating from our purpose? And for me, it was like, am I deviating? I think the only challenge I had was, am I going away from what I'm supposed to do? And so the book uh, kept that distraction, helped me know that I kept that distraction at a distance. I had walked my journey with an inquiry to understand my relationship with the universe. And the first 33 pages of the first book helped me explain myself to myself. And a lot of people find it very, very meaningful. We have extensive discussions, and I learn more. And then a lot of people just close the book and say, oh my God, why do you do this in the beginning of the book? Because I can't get it. But for me, Dipti, it just made me understand my journey and validate my transformation. And I know that I was able to embed two very, very important things. One, you are on a journey of discovering the absolute. and you're taking humanity with you. And the absolute is already with you. So you have to spend your entire time just, that little, in that movie Inception, they use a little spin, they spin that little top. So I believe that the very second that the fetus uh, takes its first breath and it's out as a baby, and it takes its first cry, it starts that spinning, because it's trying to go back to the state of absolute. It's trying to know itself. It's trying to take the journey back to where it came from. So the minute he's out, he wants to go back. The minute he's out, because his entire yearning is for love. He spends his entire life wanting to unify with the absolute. His entire seeking is to know himself better through his suckling his mother's milk, through seeking wisdom through his years where he has to be educated, through death, all of it. So it's easy to be will be my favorite. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Radhika, I know you have two talented and accomplished daughters. You've led a celebrated life. And to an outsider, it might seem like you made all the right choices in life. And the reason I said, I mentioned your daughters because I know your older one is studying at Berkeley's, and she would be very soon starting a career of her own. Yeah. Yet, if you could go back in time with all the lessons, the wisdom, the battle scars, I'm sure there are many. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self as you were starting out in your career?
I'm back to saying I don't believe we can go ahead of our time. So the advice I would give is trust your instinct. Your instinct will never, it'll help you make mistakes. Your instinct will guide you to, and I'm saying help you make mistakes, because mistakes are noteworthy. Mistakes are the essence of your evolution. Mistakes are the ones that give you the fodder to your the path that you're creating. You have to listen to your instinct to know that the road that you're walking on it could be the road of mistakes, could be the road of enlightenment, but it is the road that you're here to walk on, because the journey is not meant to be all good. The journey is not meant to be just making us feel good and happy and loved. The pain is such a beautiful thing. When people do shairi, when people write verses, when Rumi writes, the expression of that pain, there is a beauty there that everybody can't understand, can't connect with. But for the people who are initiated by that beauty, or the people who understand that poetry, it is crossing the realm of the material world. It is like meeting God. It's like acquainting yourself with the fullness of spirit. So the advice would be to not stop trusting your intuitive guidance. I was in a train with a fellow passenger, and he pointed this out to me. Somebody I never met again, and I would never meet again. And he wanted to have a random conversation. I was traveling with my mother-in-law. My babies were really small, so there were four of us, and this gentleman in a train. And he said, "We're talking about life and what do you do, etc." And he said something so beautiful. He said, "Do you know why your career in film guided you to this? Do you know the connect?" And I was like, "Well, I was in Bombay and I was in Delhi and choice of place, etc." And he said, "No, because it's so funny, because that person never knew me." He said, "When you make films, you cut down every scene into audio, video, feeling, emotion, the look, all of that." So I trained myself to do that so I could do regression therapy. Regression therapy is about moving back in a person's life, time after time, sequence after sequence, absorbing the sounds, absorbing the pain, absorbing the thrill, the joy. And when you're doing a session, it's like you're sitting with a stereophonic sound around you, because there's so much of information you're getting. And if I hadn't trained as in making my own films, and I hadn't achieved that in that 3 years that were given to me to do that, I wouldn't perhaps have been such a good regression therapist. So when I look back, I could say, oh yeah, by now I would have been having my own production house. I would have been, making my Steven Spielberg film. I would have been, yeah, but uh, where I am today is beautiful, and I wouldn't have been here if that training wouldn't have happened for me. So my guidance is watch your inner spirit and stay with your intuition.
Radhika, I would just say one thing. Your daughters are very fortunate to have a mom like you. Uh, my son, as I said, is just 4 months old, and I'm already deciding what his future should look like. And thank you for this response, because it means I don't have to have the answers for him. He should find his answers, and he should find his questions too. So this is such a beautiful response. Thank you so much. Radhika, I know you disrupted yourself throughout your life. It's beautiful disruptions. Do you have plans to disrupt yourself again in the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I have a plan. I don't think I have a strategy. I do have a plan. I want to understand the quantum physics in a way that I can again use it as a technique to be able to help people without them being here. We've gotten to a stage of working with the signals, right? We're all, we're talking over a radio, over a frequency, right? I should be able to study the quantum mechanics of the body and the mind and the spirit such that I could help people with their willingness, of course, or I shouldn't say help, guide people to find or make a movement or create a momentum towards the greater good. Yeah, I want to do that.
That's a wonderful, wonderful way to disrupt yourself. It sounds a little scary, as I said, to the unsophisticated person in me. Quantum physics, you said, right? It just sounds really tough, but the intention behind it is brilliant. So I wish you all the best, and I'm knowing you, I'm sure you're going to be marvelous at that as well. Radhika, to those who are listening, I'm going to emphasize again the way Radhika said, every book has an audience. The audience will find this book, and the ones who are meant for this book will truly appreciate this book in ways that I am doing. As I said, this is going to be a book I'm going to. I hope my son inherits, and I hope he also goes back to it on his journey on this planet. This is that good a book, right? We have to be prepared for it. We have to be prepared.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Radhika. And Radhika, before we sign off, I know you do extensive work, as part of your practice. If our audience wants to learn more about you, your practice, your books, there's so many things that you do, right? What's the best way to do? So how do they connect with you? Which is the best way to connect with you?
An email would be, so you can, information.radhika@gmail is be very happy to receive mail and, establish a new dialogue. Yeah.
Excellent. And they can also visit your website, and if they want to set up an appointment and things like that, they can visit your website, right? Which is, if you just quickly also tell us your website name, that will be helpful.
radhikakalrasingh.com. radhikakawlrasingh.com. Yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Radhika. This has been one of the most enriching conversations, and I mean, as I said, from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Radhika. That's Radhika Kalra Singh on why self-inquiry is crucial for lifelong success. Now, if you'd like to know how to access the various resources that Radhika and I talked about, such as Radhika's website and her books, you will find it all in the show notes for this episode on our website, perseveranceoverrated.com. And if you like this episode, show us some love. Please like the episode, leave us a comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or the place you listen to your podcast on. It will really help us get this episode in front of many more awesome people like you. Be sure to join me for the next episode. Another topic, another inspiring speaker. Till then, take care.